Good morning, everyone. This is IT Live, brought to you by Academy Sports and Outdoors. I'm Tex Sommer. That's Paul Wadlington. It is the Tuesday show. We are going to preview the non-conference opponents. Paul's getting ready for the old book release, so he's going to have some real good nuggets for you. And then we're also going to do at the end, should the SEC go to 9 games, Paul has always made some good points in his article on that. Might even touch some betting lines if we got time. We'll see, guys. However long we take on these non-conference games. So we're going to lead up to Ohio State. We're aware Ohio State is number 1, but let's eat our vegetables first, Paul. Who do you want to start with of the non-Ohio State teams?
You want to talk about the San Jose State Spartans and Ken Niumatalolo?
Let's do it.
How many times have you practiced pronouncing Ken Niumatalolo in your mirror before the
season? Whenever I do the preview videos later in the season, that's the nightmare. The nightmare is whenever I list offensive linemen and I list them 5 in a row, and sometimes you have 2 or 3 names, and so I'm having to hit all the names. That's the toughest part. Whenever you have to string them together. Yeah. It's like West African or Polynesian, and those
or the worst, it's the Samoan West African hyphen.
Yeah, that's
the Nigerian hooks up with the Samoan.
It's the Nigerian, like the silent letters of the Nigerians and stuff like that, where it gets tricky.
You end up with Okereke Tufalonga.
Yeah, you end up with G's that are non-existent, and you don't. But sometimes they matter in the middle.
Well, you told me real G's move in silence.
Exactly. Let's start with a little Wayne, and then I think we got Drew him, hook him. All right, San Jose, man. Quarterbacks looking like Walker Eaget. Did you watch the crazy overtime versus USF last year?
Yeah, I did actually. Yeah. I don't know why, but yes, I did.
Yeah, they went to 5 overtimes. That was fun. But it's looking like Walker is going to be the starting quarterback.
So for those who don't know, the former head coach at Navy, longtime head coach at Navy, Ken Niumatalolo, went to San Jose State and didn't run the option.
Yeah.
They run the spread and shred, Connor.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a combination of the spread and the old school run and shoot back from the old John Jenkins days of U of H. So that'll be an interesting offense to see. They're looking for their 4th straight bowl game, Connor. They went 7-6 last year. They, as you said, they won the bowl against USF. An entertaining
they lost. They lost.
Oh, they lost. You're right.
Yeah, at the very end, but who cares? Yeah.
Right. Sorry about that. But as with all of these schools that are a little bit lower in the rungs of college football hierarchy, they lost some players in the offseason.
Mm-hmm.
And they actually had a really good secondary, particularly at turning people over. They were 5th in the country in forced turnovers. Their 2 starting corners and their starting safety, all gone. Yeah. Stolen in the portal by USC, SMU, and Arizona. So Texas is going to have an opportunity to throw the ball around against San Jose State. The question is, are we going to stop their passing game, which has at times gotten hot and lit up a few people?
So last year they were number 1 in the country for passing attempts per game, averaging 43, and they are 13th in seconds per play.
And they don't run the ball.
They don't do it well either. When they do try. They were 98th in the nation with 3.7 yards per carry. So this is whenever I'm looking at non-conference games where Texas is going to win, right? You're looking for styles make fights type things.
Yep.
So I like the teams we play to have extreme natures like this.
So you can test part of your team.
Right. If they're kind of just right down the middle pro style, I like them to be on this weird ends of the bell curve here. And this is a good one. So I want to see a pass heavy, 11 personnel, 4 wide, sometimes 10 personnel, just a lot of receivers everywhere. And they're obsessed with the quick outs to take away, to cancel out a run game. They're doing all of this stuff. And then they throw a lot of like red zone fades too. And so that's fun to watch, like DBs one-on-one in the end zone doing that stuff. So this will be fun. Like I said before the show, Clemson played this kind of style. Now, Paul pointed out Clemson likely has better athletes. I don't know. We'll see. But it is fun to see a defensive back room get tested this early because they'll probably do all right early, but how they look in the 3rd and the 4th quarter if they're even playing at that point? Can you get worn down like we did versus Clemson? If they're passing this many times, you're having to sprint to a guy, 40 times in a game.
Yeah, what's interesting about San Jose State is as much as they throw the ball, they don't get sacked. So kind of like the old run and shoot principles. they throw the ball immediately.
Yeah.
The second the ball hits his hand, he looks and throws.
Mm-hmm.
And everything's on timing. So the question will be, how much do we want to show with regards to press? Because obviously if our pass rush can get a little time, they're going to get there on San Jose State's offensive tackles. So I'm very curious about if we just play it straight down the middle, like let's not show anything, or do we view this as an opportunity to grow a little bit and, hey, let's have our guys press. Let's not give them an immediate throw. Let's see if our pass rush can get there and cause some turnovers.
So immediately I would say we're not going to show anything because of PK, but with our new hires, they might want to be like, hey, let's press a little bit, because this would be a good team to figure it out with. Like I said, those red zone fades they like to throw. I mean, they're going to, and like Paul said, they throw quick no matter where they're throwing.
If they're throwing deep, it's still a quick ball.
Exactly. Even if it's deep, it's still a 3-step drop, and you have to win. Yeah. So that'll be fun. I am with Orfe and Akina. I want to see if we press more, because you're going to have to. Like if they're on those second and thirds, man, they're going to just leverage you with a quick out or a quick slant, and that's a really frustrating style of offense if it gets going. The problem is they have to be right, 10, 15 times in a row. And that's not going to be very successful versus Texas, hopefully.
They also lost their best receiver, Nick Nash, who was a big, tall guy, great possession receiver. He had 104 catches last year. So he was the security blanket for that quarterback tandem. The other quarterback transferred to Coastal Carolina. So it's Walker Eget's job, and it'll be interesting. Obviously San Jose State, not a great team, but offensively they lit up Boise. I don't know if you knew that.
I didn't watch that game, no.
Yeah, Boise didn't know how to defend them. And they busted, and they were like, it was really strange to watch. Like Boise did not have a good game plan. So that was an interesting game. I mean, obviously Boise still won, but yeah, it's going to be a fun game. I'm like you, Connor, in that I love to play extremist opponents who really test one aspect of your team. Alternatively, if we were playing a power running double tight end team that, wants to mash, that would be interesting as well. What we don't want to see is a team that runs it, throws a short pass, 3rd and 5, they run a screen, and they're just trying to get their paycheck and go home. This team is going to bring an extreme offense. I think defensively, they're going to show us a lot of looks too. They run a 3-4. Their best player is a linebacker named Jordan Pollard. I think 3 of their best players are transferred out. I mean, their secondary was the heart of their team last year. Because they're undersized and they run a 3-4, I think they're going to run a lot of stunts. I think they're going to do a lot of crazy stuff on defense, which is a great prep test for our young offensive line.
Yeah, I agree. That I want Arch to see that as well.
Ben G with a comment that proves he's a G. I'm ready for the 2025 Texas Football Prospectus, Paul. I am too, Ben. Is there any way we can get someone to write it for me?
I know. Dude, your whole year is it releases and you feel great, and then it's just gradual stress increase for the rest of the
It's
year.
funny. I'm really happy after I've written it, but right before writing it, I'm a procrastinator.
That's how you know you're a good writer, though, if you hate writing. I think that's the litmus test, where you're just you dread the stress of it, the confrontation of writing. But once you're in it, you're like, this feels right. So I was listening to an insider with San Jose State, because surprisingly, I don't have a lot of insiders at San Jose State. But he said what you said. They feel really good about the linebacker room. That's the one. The guy asked him, at the end of the season, if you had a successful season, what room would you point to? And he would say it would be the linebacker room. They say they have wide receiver depth. So last year they had Nash, who went to the Falcons, I think, undrafted free agent. They also had a receiver named Lockhart, who also went for 1,000. And so they're both gone. So last year they said they were super top heavy. They had no depth. This year they said they don't really know who's at the top, but they have more depth. I would still rather have 2 1,000-yard receivers at the top and not necessarily
depth won't help you in a marquee game, right?
And I don't follow their team. I just watched USF. I watched Stanford, so I could sneakily watch Mosley as well. And so I have to see how much of that stuff is systematized too, right? If you're passing that much, yeah. Yeah, they beat Stanford. Yeah, unfortunately.
Crazy.
But I was just scouting Mosley pretty much the entire time. And so that'll be the big thing is how systematized is it, right? If you're throwing that much, you're going to have wide receiver numbers. So we just got to see. But San Jose State, for the football fans, what you want to see in that game is that we're able to contest short passes and able to get there quickly, and they don't nickel and dime us to death. When they do throw it deep, don't get beat.
Yep.
Cool. And one other thing, they had a pretty good rushing defense last year. They were like top 30 in EPA per rush. So we'll see if that continues. I want to show you this, Paul. This is fun. You'll like this.
All right.
When I was watching the game, I was like, "What? Look at this look." All right, window. Okay, look at this. Look at this look. So this is USF versus San Jose State. It's 2nd and 15, so they're finally getting them into a passing down. But look at this structure.
Wow.
I loved it. And it works. They get an interception on this. This guy comes up and the quarterback forces it. But it's just like a beautiful structure. But this is how they were like, look, I'm tired of your 5 wide empty stuff. And they just kind of flood the field.
If only you could if you got a mobile running quarterback like John Mateer, I would automatically run a draw on this. Just on spam it.
Yep.
Is that, could you call that a 4-man box, or is that a 3-man box in your opinion?
A 3-man, and 2 of them are stand-up. So you only have one guy with like significant size up the middle too.
I mean, don't you just want to hike it to the quarterback, have him pause for a second, and then just run right up the middle for 11 yards?
Yeah, if you can get the 15, let's do it. But like, the quarterback forces it, tip ball into an interception, so it works perfectly. But I love watching people that played San Jose's passing offense and kind of the unique stuff they try to do to counter it. And this worked really well. So immediately I was thinking with Texas, I'm like, man, let's do this. Let's go dime. This is a good opportunity for dime. You know, it's a good opportunity to bring the house in our pass rush.
It's a good opportunity for 7 DBs, apparently.
Yeah. Exactly. So, this structure like caught my eye on this play, and I was like, okay, this is a good scout play.
If a nickel is 5 and a dime is 6, what's 7 DBs? Is that a quarter?
They call it $1.
Do they really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Which also, like I said, the logic's not super great there. I would agree quarter, but it's called $1 for whatever.
All right.
Yeah.
Inflation.
Yeah, exactly. It's an inflationary thing. But yeah, that's a fun look, man. So maybe that's how we answer some of this nonsense 10, 11 personnel that they like to
run and shoot, spread and shred tomfoolery.
Yeah. Kids these days with their empty
sets. They don't want to play manly football.
All right. Let's do. You want to do Sam Houston?
You want to do UTEP or Sam Houston?
We can. UTEP. So real quick overview: 3-9 last year, but it was the first season under Walden. Walden gets like a lot of credit from coaches that say nice things about him. Apparently, he's on a trajectory. Did well at Austin Peay. He's in his 2nd season. Offensive-minded guy, but he is replacing both coordinators.
He brought a bunch of transfers from Austin Peay where they had success at their level. Did not translate a step up at UTEP.
Yeah.
You think they're going to come in and the Miners are going to be peed on in Austin?
I was watching their spring game. Shout out to the one fan who just held his iPhone in his lap and filmed the whole spring game. Shout out to you, man. You're a good guy. So I watched it, and they have the blue team and the orange team. I don't know if they call blue or orange something, but the orange team on the sidelines, he's filming them. I think that's their 2nd string or 3rd string. Man, that looked like a high school team. Their starting group looks better. I'll give you that. But there's still there's no depth there. And our boy Malachi Nelson.
A battle of 5-star quarterbacks, Connor.
Yeah. You got Locklear and
Malachi's going to start.
Yeah, that was the interesting part because Nelson actually got the 3rd team reps, and I'm sure that was some type of psychological you're the new guy thing. But there might be that quarterback. There's like 8 quarterbacks in their quarterback room. I've never seen anything like it. It's like it doesn't even make sense how many quarterbacks. I don't know how many of them are good, but they have like 8 dudes in there.
Well, probably not real good if you've got 8 guys.
Right.
So Malachi Nelson, for those who don't know, was a former 5-star recruit. He went to USC, didn't flourish there. Went to Boise, couldn't win the starting job there, and now he's at UTEP. Maybe water has found its level, but he's had a little bit of a fall from grace. He is not clearly going to be the starter. The guy who started last year was named Skylar Locklear.
Mm-hmm.
He's about 5'10", 5'11", kind of like a scrappy guy, but not very good. And they had one player from last year that was pretty good. They had a receiver who was an Austin Peay transfer named Kenny Odom, who was their leading receiver. That was their offense. Their offense was ranked 131st out of 134 teams by Advanced Analytics. They lost to Tennessee 56-0. They lost to Nebraska 40-7. So old UTEP, not exactly an offensive juggernaut.
Yeah, and when Nelson goes into the game, just size and like comfortability in the pocket, you notice him. But it's funny because he'll try to do some stuff to create, like they're out of sync. Like the quarterbacks are dropping, 3-step drop, hitch, and the ball should come out, and it just never does. And so they start running around. So Nelson can do that and start running around, but the receivers they don't have the reps or the understanding of like working with him as a creator. So he'll like run towards the line. They'll try to block. He's really trying to dump off a pass to him. They drop it, or it forces him to throw a pick. So they're all discombobulated. They don't really know what they are. And that's to be understood if you're in a quarterback battle. But
I think UTEP's one of the most difficult jobs in FBS.
Yeah.
I mean, like, can you name a tougher job?
No, because as soon as you have any success, that player gets immediately poached.
And you're also in El Paso, man.
Yeah, you're out there.
People talk about Lubbock being out of the way, right? Yeah. I mean, there's some human, demographically, there's not a lot of football players there, even though El Paso is a decent sized town, right? Yeah. But it's in the middle of nowhere. I mean, people are like, it's in Texas. Texas is full of talent. It's like, not there.
And the state thing is 12 hours to get across.
Yeah, it's not, people are like, it's in Texas. Or like, Texas is pretty big and it's out there. Like, start driving right now if you're in Austin and tell me when you get to El Paso. So, I think that's a tough gig. It's a tough job, but I love their stadium.
Yeah. They're one of our Texas fans on Twitter is also a UTEP grad, and he posts pictures from the games there, and it looks pretty cool. UTEP is tricky, man. And as far as like run defense, watching it's spring game, but I'm telling you, man, I could get 20-yard runs on some of these things. Like these things are wide open, man.
All right.
Like, it's not even close. And I'm like, well, they must have, maybe they're not fitting. They're fitting all right. They're just getting demolished. Like,
really?
It's like the width of 2 people you could run through on some of these runs.
Yikes.
So they're getting, with spring game, grain of salt. But that was something that struck out. Another thing, too, offensive line was struggling to pick up the blitz. So anytime that they would bring multiple guys, and the quarterbacks, like I said, they would do their 3-step drops and a hitch, and they would almost never throw it on time.
Struggling to pick up the blitz against Texas is not something you want on your scouting report.
Correct.
Like playing us.
Yeah, and it's spring. I get it. It's offense. It's going to be a little bit disconnected, but some of it was just like, hey, man, you're probably going to struggle.
Yeah,
their conference. Are they
Mountain West? Line is small.
They're Conference USA, right?
Yeah, they're CUSA.
Okay. So yeah, and then as far as offense, they're kind of that middle team we were talking about. A good mix of screens, RPOs, gap schemes, quarterback runs, shots. A lot of 11 personnel, at least in spring. So they have the, I wouldn't call it pro because it's too reliant on some college-y aspects like the quarterback run and all that, but it's a good mix. This is not necessarily an extremist offense where we would know one way or the other.
I think they're going to contend with Sam Houston State as the worst team on our schedule. We're gonna see. I think San Jose. Wouldn't you say San Jose State is a step up from UTEP?
Yeah. And one player you will notice if you watch the spring game, Cash Cheeks.
Cash Cheeks, baby.
Yeah, he's a 6
Pride
foot.
of Colorado Springs.
Yeah, shout him out. He's I think he transferred from Northern Colorado, right? And then
Yeah.
so he's a 6'7" tight end. And UTEP's not a big squad. So whenever he's in the game, you notice him immediately. And anytime you're scouting any of these teams, you're looking for a future transfer. And so Cash Cheeks, interesting player at 6'7".
Don't the kids say when something's awesome that it's Cheeks?
No, when it's bad, it's Cheeks.
Oh, it's that. So he's Cash positive.
And
Cheeks.
the kids will also say something's cash, as in that's a positive.
So
So
he's
neutral.
I think he epitomizes the duality of man,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
The dichotomous nature
Yes.
of Cash, but Cheeks.
Yeah. And it's like electrons. It just ends up being bouncing out, though. It's really kind of a beautiful metaphor.
The same guy caught my eye, Connor. It's funny. You and I see stuff the same.
Yeah.
The same guy caught my eye. So I did a deep dive. Found out he was from Colorado Springs, which is, a football powerhouse, juggernaut of talent production. But he was 6'7", 190 in high school.
Yeah, he's still 6'7", 195 right now.
No, he's up to like 240.
On his listing, he was like 195.
His listing is old. They didn't update it, which is another sign of these smaller schools. Their rosters aren't super updated sometimes.
Yeah, and not exactly because they don't have the staff to do all these little marketing things, and so it's pretty tough, man. But UTEP, I'm gonna give the edge to Texas. Who do you hope wins the? Yeah, I think I'm gonna.
Remember the old days? Like, people still do it. It makes me laugh. Like, they'll be like linebackers, and then they'll have the horn insignia. Like, you're evaluating the team by position.
Yep.
First of all, your linebackers don't play the other team's linebackers.
I know, it'll crack me up.
So that makes me laugh. But it'll also be like Texas is playing Rice, and it's just a series of horns, like 11 in a row.
Yeah.
Like, advantage Texas, and you're like, yeah, thank you.
Thank you for that.
That's helpful.
Yeah, let's show the audience. They need to believe that we're no liars.
That Cash Cheeks exists.
Yes, this is Cash Cheeks.
There he is.
It's University of Northern Colorado, 6'7" senior, tight end, 2024 Big Sky Conference Fall All Academic team.
Mm-hmm.
So not a lot of stats here. Appeared in 11 games, 18 receptions for 170 as a wide receiver.
So he grew into his tight end.
And this is small school stuff. Also punted 5 times. Man, I love small schools.
Yeah, Northern Colorado is at altitude, so anyone who punts there is going to have inflated stats.
Yeah, elite. All right, that's Cash Cheeks.
Cash Cheeks, I'm just telling you now, he's going to be a big focus of Thinking Texas Football.
Yeah, his own chapter.
He's going to become the star of that preview.
Yep. All right. Paul, I want to go to Sam Houston. Before I do that, I would like to tell you guys about Academy Sports and Outdoors. Academy Sports and Outdoors is your new home for Jordan gear. Gear up today and take flight on the court, off the court, and above the court. Unleash your greatness with head-to-toe Jordan gear for the entire family, not just shoes, guys. Available in-store and at academy.com. Elevated styles and shoes for everyone. Unstoppable value every day. Plus, Academy offers easy ways to shop and save time, like free 1-hour in-store or curbside pickup on academy.com orders. Or choose same-day delivery powered by DoorDash. You can order by 4 p.m., get it to your lovely home by 8 p.m. Check out Academy's full Jordan selection today at Academy Sports and Outdoors. And if you look here at this image, this is me dunking the basketball as well.
Wow, you look great, man.
Yep. I'm a bit photogenic.
Is that an 8-foot hoop?
Of course, no. It's a trampoline park. I needed the extra bounce.
11-foot hoop.
Yeah, it was important. All right, Sam Houston, Paul, you're going to take the lead on this one.
All right.
Returning production, you're going to stay. They're 117th in the country for bringing back talent.
What are your thoughts on the man, Sam Houston, in general? The father of Texas.
Love him.
Me too.
Yeah, I love statues of him.
A great man.
Yeah.
All right. Did you know he lived with the Cherokee when he was a teenager for like 2 years?
No, but that's the story of like all the great guys that dude, their lives were just nuts, dude.
Like he just decided between the ages of 15 and 17, like, I'm tired of doing chores on Pa's farm in Tennessee.
Yeah.
And he just went and lived with the Cherokee for 2 years.
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah, that was cool. And then he came back.
We just live with our parents, go to college. Like you read these stories of these people back then. It's just
He founded a country.
Yeah.
Became a state.
Yep.
All right. Well, speaking of us moving from a country to a state, that's a little bit of a downgrade, right? Sam Houston State, bit of a downgrade. They went 10-3 last year, Connor, under Casey Keeler. He gets the gig at Temple. This is like Friday Night Lights. Or not Friday Night Lights. What's the football show? The TV show Friday Night Lights.
Yeah.
The end of that high school show is he gets the head coach football job at Temple. Did you know that?
No, I didn't. I remember watching the first season when I was like in high school or middle school.
And it ends with he tries to do the clear eyes, full arts, can't lose chant with the kids from Temple. And they just kind of look at him and he's like, well, we'll work on it.
For real. That's funny.
Yeah.
That is how it works.
All right. So Sam Houston State was a defensive ball control football team last year. Very poor offense, but a good defense that kept them in all their games. And their goal on offense was to control the ball. And if they could run the ball, great. Their quarterback, Hunter Watson, was a runner first, not a passer. And that defense is decimated. All those guys are gone. They either graduated or they transferred. Their new coach is Phil Longo, who was the fired offensive coordinator from Wisconsin. Who knew you couldn't run the spread in Madison, Wisconsin, Connor?
Who would have thought?
Who would have thought? But he comes in. The entire defense is gone. They've scattered to the winds. They're going to be starters at places like Duke, Auburn, Virginia Tech, and a bunch of them went to North Texas, like 9 of them. So they are starting over on defense. What they hung their hat on last year, it's gone. So this, to your point, Connor, you're talking about extremes. Had they returned their defense, this would have been a fun team to play as a test because they had a really active defense, kind of undersized, but super athletic, and they ran a lot of stunts and stuff, and it would have been a great drill for our offensive line. Alas, those guys are gone, and they brought back their bad offense. So Phil Longo is a spread it out, throw it around guy. Hunter Watson, his likely quarterback, is I want to run the ball guy, and he doesn't throw well. So I think Hunter Watson, he may not be the quarterback when we play them. He may audition the next guy who can throw the ball a little better. But this team looks like it's going to have a big drop off. They're undersized on defense, but without the quickness and sort of speed that they had before. So across their front four, Connor, 240, 280, 270, 235.
Wow.
And they start 2 cornerbacks that are both 5'9", 5'8". So there's going to be some size differential. There's going to be some athleticism differential. And I think their offense is just going to stink. So I'm not sure they're not worse than UTEP. Even though if they played UTEP last year, they would have beaten them. So I don't know. These UTEP and Sam Houston State represent the bottom of our schedule.
How do you feel about the non-Ohio State non-conference slate? Of course, they're going to be W's, but if you could, like we said, if you could kind of
whoa, Mr. Arrogant Texas Longhorn fan. That's the kind of arrogance why people hate us, Connor.
Yes, yeah. Go watch the tape.
Respect UTEP, Sam Houston State, and San Jose State.
Yeah, and I evaluate these teams. You have to evaluate them in their context. So it's like I'm evaluating San Jose in the Mountain West. I'm not evaluating them versus Texas. That's not a fair game.
I always struggle with that in my preseason previews, like in my football preview, because I want to emphasize, like, hey, this team, this was their yards per game in the Mountain West, but that doesn't mean anything when they play us.
Yep.
But then I try to point out, hey, these 2 guys would actually play for us. So Pay attention to these 2 guys. But, it's hard for people to understand, like, what really doesn't scale from the lower levels. And if you talk to Coach Charlie, he'll tell you this. It's the line play. It's offensive line. It's defensive line. Those guys are just several notches below the University of Texas. Whereas their skill player is not as good, but it's usually because he's got, like, one trait that's off. But everything else is like, he's agile, he's quick, but he's 5'8", 160.
It's like Nick Nash. He has all these traits, but he's slow.
He's a 4'7" guy.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. So that's the thing with these teams. And like you, I like the extremist teams that will test one thing really hard. You're going to laugh at this. Maybe this is a reach. I think if Sam Houston State spreads it out and starts Hunter Watson, it's actually like a decent scout team version of what OU is going to do to us.
Okay, because you're saying he's a running quarterback.
OU is going to spread us out, and they are going to run John Mateer 20, 25 times.
Okay, so it's a good scout team.
So it's a scout team. Like, this is what we do when someone goes 5 wide and runs quarterback draw, right? Okay. This is what we do when a quarterback has one read down the field and then he takes off running. Like, that's a decent scout. I'm not intimating that Sam Houston State has anyone who could start for OU, but I'm just saying that it's like a scout version of, like, at least you'll see what this looks like and feels like.
Yeah, it's
Hunter Watson rushes for 128 yards against us. You may want to take the under when we play OU.
That's great. I'm glad you mentioned that, Paul. So, like, people will go like, happens every year. Time is a flat circle. It's unavoidable.
Yep.
But what will happen is Texas will show some weakness invariably in the non-con. I will point it out on Twitter, and I will be told, A, it doesn't matter, or B, that it'll be solved.
Yeah.
This is what I can tell you. When you do things really well versus bad teams, it means almost nothing. It doesn't always scale. If you do something bad against a bad team, it is always a problem, and it continues almost season long. So, like the red zone versus Wyoming, when we could not punch it in the red zone. Well, that showed up again versus OU, and that showed up again. So this is the true value of non-conference. People say these games are meaningless. They are absolutely not meaningless if we are not performing in some regard. You might improve a little bit throughout the season. I'm not saying that has happened, but you don't go from being awful at something to great at something. That doesn't happen.
I remember a game back in the day. We played North Texas, and we won 27-0 or something like that. But their defense gave us fit. Yeah. And they got multiple sacks and hits on the quarterback. And people are like, well, we won by 4 touchdowns. What are you complaining about? And you're like, we can't block North Texas, man. And it was schematic. Like, we didn't have it schemed right. And it was not something you could just fix. And it plagued us the rest of that year.
Yeah. So it's just, it won't work. Me giving this PSA will not work. Trust me. But it's just, that's what you're looking for. If you're performing poorly versus a bad team in some regard, it is almost always going to haunt you for the rest of the season. And it's important to notice that.
Oh, so I'm hearing in the chat that we're playing Ohio State at 11 a.m.
Yeah, well, they announced the game. Fox announced the game yesterday. They didn't announce the time, but of course, maybe they did since I saw it. But of course, it's going to be at big noon kickoff.
I hate that
premier spot. Yeah, you're not a day game guy. You want it at night. How do you? I think it advantages Texas when you're the away guy to play at noon.
Oh yeah, no. Look, as a fan, I want my game at night under the lights. As an analyst or a pro Texas guy, I want to play Ohio State at 6 a.m.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Because I don't want – they're going to get super liquored up and fired up, and it'll just be at a crescendo by 6 p.m., right? So you want to get that early kickoff.
But also just –
drunk and obnoxious.
But also it's just like I don't mind – it depends, man. But like if I play Georgia, I want it to be at 7 p.m. You know, but it's like – other games, I'm good with getting it over and knowing how my Saturday is going to go. Because otherwise, you're just waiting to set. We work those days, you know. So there's like this nervous energy of a game, like all of this stuff. Sometimes it's nice to know what's up by 3 p.m. But of course,
I usually not only do we work, but I usually have a kid's football game to attend.
yeah.
And then so I've got to like play catch up, or try to turn my phone off, or I do that thing of like no one tell me the score, and then of course I look like
of course you
5 minutes in I break.
Yep. So but that's a very selfish, specific use case that I'm talking about. That the average fan is like, I don't care. I want it at 7. We will play Florida at 3:30, and Georgia game will probably be at 7:30 at night. That Florida game's interesting, man.
That's going to be a wild environment. I promise you, that is a game that Florida has circled.
Well, yeah, because we ran it up against them. Not even trying to run it up against them. We just did.
not just that, I just think that that's a big game, prove it game for those guys. Like, are we back? Are we've recruited well. We've got our young quarterback. Are we about to be something again?
Yeah.
Are we going to be Florida again?
Yeah. They're us a couple years ago. And so, yeah. And then, of course, they got to know, is Lagway the truth? And he probably is, unfortunately. All right.
So let me ask you, like, bigger picture for college football. San Jose State, I think, had the chance to, like, contend in the Mountain West if they'd been able to keep some players. How do you feel about this as a college football fan now that their three best defensive players just get plucked in the offseason, and now they're going to be starting at USC, Arizona, and SMU? Is this good for football, big picture, or is this just the way this is the food chain, deal with it?
I mean, it is the food chain. It's not good for overall football. I mean, we just, if you're a Texas fan, this is all benefit to us. But trying to zoom out a little bit, it sucks. If you're a San Jose State fan, you go to school there, you want to see these guys because they all go to the games too, and you want a couple star players,
Yeah.
And so I don't know it's good for Texas. It's good for the top of the sport, but this consolidation ultimately is not going to be good for the entire sport. It's just not. But everyone's becoming a farm team. It's going to become demoralizing, though. It's got to be for these coaches, that develop. And you also, those coaches will find the fastest route out of those programs too. So you end up with these teams perpetually not good because the good coaches are getting plucked in 3 years. And that was happening before, but it'll accelerate it quicker.
Yeah, I guess the difference now is that the coaches always had a ladder.
Mhm.
The players didn't.
Yep.
And now both do. But as a coach, think how much it sucks that you identify something in this 2-star player.
Mm-hmm.
He's underweight, undersized, he's not strong enough, or he's not quick enough, whatever. And you're like, no, I have a vision for this guy. You bring him in, you cultivate him, you redshirt him, he gets stronger, he gets faster, you teach him, he develops. And by his sophomore season, he's all Mountain West. He's gone.
Yeah, it's over.
He's playing for UCLA the next year.
Yeah.
Like, how frustrating is that? Because it interrupts your cycle, your developmental cycle. Because
Correct.
You're like, when this guy's a junior with this guy and this guy, we're going to win the league. And I'm going to get, and I'm going to be a champion and I'm going to get a contract extension. Instead, it's like, nope, he balled out as a sophomore. He's gone.
Yeah. Yeah, it's got to be demoralizing. There's really no way around it. I think it's good for the players, right? Like, if you're good enough to move up, man, great. Go to Auburn, like these players are trying to go pro and that kind of stuff. So it's good for the players. It's tough for the fans of these schools that want to be supportive of their teams, but they'll get stuck in this kind of perpetually being bad situation. For Texas fans, unfortunately, great for us.
There's really about a dozen teams that really benefit being at the very top of the hierarchy, right?
Yeah.
Ohio State built out their roster through the portal last year and had incredible depth. They survived some pretty big injuries and just cruised, right?
Yeah.
Hopefully Texas is going to getting in a similar spot.
Yeah. Ohio State, baby.
Before we talk Ohio State.
There we go, Paul. You knew it.
Let's talk about Gabe Winslow. I don't know if you want to move to Columbus, or I don't know if you want to move to Huntsville, unless you got a job at the prison, in which case, congratulations. But if you did and you need to sell your house or you need to buy your house, this is the guy you need to talk to. You need to talk to Gabe Winslow. You can reach him at 832-557-1095. Why Gabe? Well, he's a Texas grad, 20 years in the industry, former National Merit Scholar. He's got a law degree from a top 20 law school. Just sharp guy. And this is about as good as it gets. If you're looking for mortgage guy credentials, Gabe is at the top. And if you want to look at more subjective evaluations, go read his Google reviews. He has over 200 reviews, all 5 stars, raving paragraph after paragraph about the amazing job that Gabe did, how absolutely considerate he is, and also how much he pays attention to the details, including getting you a smoking deal. Give him a call, 832-557-1095. Tell him that we sent you, and he will treat you right.
Gabe the man Winslow. Splendid Daddy. Paul, there was talk during the draft about transferring impacting development. What do you think about that?
I don't. What was the context? That it was good for development or bad for development?
I would assume bad. Splendid
Well,
Daddy, correct us with
for
if I'm wrong.
Texas, it's good. Matthew Golden developed and made millions of dollars because he transferred from Houston to
That's
Texas.
true. You're right.
Adonai Mitchell made millions of dollars and developed because he transferred from Georgia to Texas. So in Texas's case, I mean, you'll see with Trey Moore that playing linebacker is going to ultimately be good for his draft stock, right? He's going to maximize his draft stock. When before, if he'd stayed at UTSA, yeah, he would have been a really good pass rusher, but he wouldn't have maximized his draft stock, right? He doesn't project to the NFL as a pure pass rusher. Andrew Makuba playing, we know now, as I suspected and I accused them, I said Clemson runs a bad scheme on defense after examining them before we played them. Then we played them, and I was like, yeah, Clemson runs a bad scheme on defense. And then they fired the DC. Makuba was a whipping boy in that scheme. He wasn't progressing. He comes to Texas. He goes to the next level. He gets drafted, and frankly, he was a household name in college football. I mean, because Andrew Makuba put up big hits on people or big interceptions in big games, and people knew who he was, and that helped him. So at Texas, it's been tremendous for people that have transferred in. More broadly in college football, I think it's good and bad, actually. I think you have just as many testimonies that it's been good for a player as there are that it was deleterious for a player who was just chasing a bag, right? Mm-hmm. And they would have been better off staying. Some of this is the judgment of the player or his camp. You've got to pick the developmental programs. And I'm pleased to tell you the University of Texas is a developmental program now. And we have not been for a while. So it's kind of refreshing to see people come in here and get considerably better quickly.
And you need schematic fit too. Like whenever you're going somewhere, make sure that it fits your strengths. Splendid Daddy said lots of first rounders weren't transfers. Yeah, but also I would think too, like if you have a known kind of first rounder, you're going to pay up. You know.
Yeah, and also every quarterback of consequence, it seems, in the draft has been a transfer.
The quarterback is like you have to talk to them about them almost separately because their transfer numbers are nuts.
Yeah, but
50%.
I mean, every meaningful quarterback has been a transfer.
Yeah.
Cam Ward is a 3-time transfer? 2-time transfer.
Yeah, San Antonio.
Ward, yeah. Washington State, yeah. Miami.
Yeah, quarterbacks are like their own thing. I don't even include them when I'm thinking about transfer because it's a whole thing. But they also don't get in trouble. They're like coaches. They don't get in trouble for their movements. Other people do.
That's true. Yeah. I think these players, a lot of them don't have very good advice in their ears. I'll just leave it at that.
Correct.
And yeah, there's a self-selection process in that regard that the camp around a player can really destroy his career because they're parasites. A lot of these people are leeches. Mm-hmm. And these are families that are trying to live through their kid, not just emotionally, but financially.
Correct.
It is not a secret with NIL that quite a few of these guys are having to transfer and generate checks again because their family has effectively already gone through all their NIL money.
Yep.
And these guys have to go back in the market and try to up their payments so they can basically feed parasites. It's pretty sad, but it's a tough thing to ask an 18-year-old to tell his family, hey, stay in your lane.
Yeah, it's tough to get on the kids with that stuff because it's 90% of the time, it's some family member or some shady half agent,
Well, there's always like some random uncle who never was a part of the kid's life who shows up when the guy starts being
correct. And their person is never a good businessman. So it's like, why do you trust them? They're poor already. Why are you listening to them for business advice?
The crazy thing about them, Connor, is these are guys who think they know. Like
I know, but they have no tangible proof of knowing anything.
They're hustlers. They think they're street smart, and they just get schooled. They get fleeced. Or they fleece the kid. I mean, so here's a reality. There are some guys who act as the agent for the kid, and the kid doesn't get the offers. They don't know. Yeah. And what the guy will do is actually get the athlete to sign to a school for less NIL money to the school, but he negotiates a separate payment for himself.
Like a flat
double dips. He takes a piece from the athlete and he negotiates a separate effectively illegal payment from the school. So the athlete ends up signing for less NIL money that they would have gotten at Texas, which we don't do side deals. There are schools that do side deals.
Yeah.
And that is a very bad, and that's a complete betrayal of your athlete, your client, and your family member, right?
Well, we need agent accreditation, just like the NFL. The NFL has been through this. There's reasons why they have certain checks in place because they 20 years ago realized, longer than 20 years ago, realized the nefarious fake agents that show up. If you I mean, some of these NIL agents, and a lot of them are not even presenting themselves as like football agents. They're presenting themselves as marketers.
Yeah.
You know, and so they're like these strange marketing
Branders.
Yeah, it's just like, look, we'll connect you with these brands.
I'm here to grow your brand.
Exactly, dude.
Yeah, if you're telling a 17-year-old, I'm here to grow your brand, like run away.
This comes from someone that worked in digital marketing for years. Like, don't listen to digital marketers. Like, I don't know what to tell you. Don't do it.
Well, I've got a podcast, obviously, the Everyone Gets a Trophy podcast I do with Randy Boone.
Yeah.
And, I get cold calls all the time.
Yep. All the emails. We can help your SEO.
You get a certain number of listens, it shows up on their metrics.
Yeah.
And so the podcast has a good number of listeners and, a bunch of reviews on iTunes. So I'm on their freaking board to like cold call. And and they're so dumb. And like their introductory emails are so dumb.
Yep.
Like, do you want to be rich?
Yeah. And I'm like, yes, let's do this, man.
I do.
What are the odds?
I'm going to sign up with you.
Yeah, correct. I get them too, man. Except I worked in digital marketing, so I know exactly how.
You're the one sending those emails. Huh?
Yeah, it's actually me. And by the way, Paul, sign up, dude. We're a good agency. All right.
That's right.
All right.
Splendid Daddy, I think, encompasses all of our feelings here. Never thought I'd complain about a lack of regulation. Yeah. Amen.
Stuff. All right. Let's talk Ohio State, man. Turns out they're a pretty big brand, and people are looking forward to this game.
How would you rate them in relation to San Jose State, Sam Houston State, and UTEP?
They're right in the middle.
Okay.
Yeah, they're a middle of the pack type of team. But Ohio State returning production 101st. Now you would go, haha, man, that's awful, until you realize Texas is 103rd.
Yeah. We're not good on that metric.
And Georgia is also right there too. So what you learn is of course, the team that are putting a lot of NFL guys are always going to be behind in returning production, but they tend to replenish. So returning production doesn't mean what we think it means. At the very bottom of the sport, it's bad. At the very top of the sport, it's just the nature of things.
It means you got a lot of guys drafted.
Yep. So they had 14 draft picks. That's not including undrafted free agents. Of course, Knowles goes to Penn State, Chip Kelly to the Raiders. So replacing both coordinators. On offense, they lost quarterback, running back 1 and 2, slot receiver, left tackle, and right tackle 2. They return Smith, Carnell Tate, and then their interior. And then they portal for tight end Max Clare, and then they pick up the left tackle, I think, from Rice.
Yeah.
So they solved some of those issues as well by picking up left tackle and tight end 1. So you would naturally go like, man, they're decimated. And they're just not. Like this season, like they're able to portal replenish fairly well. Their wide receiver room is stupid.
Connor, they have better pass catchers. They have the best pass catchers in the country, period. Yeah. And they have better pass catchers than last year.
Correct.
But their receiver core was arguably the best in the country.
Yeah. And then you add Max Clare, who's going to be a nightmare over the middle at tight end.
He's going to murder it.
Yeah. And so the big thing is, can Peoples and Donaldson, what are they going to do at running back? Right. And I've always been a CJ Donaldson at West Virginia guy. I like him as a back.
Here's testimony to the fact that they're probably going to be okay. I like CJ Donaldson too. When he was at West Virginia, he's clearly running back number 2.
Yep.
They love Peoples. Who's from Austin? Is he from, he's from Texas? Is he from Austin?
I don't know if he's from Austin, but he's from Texas. Yeah.
But they love Peoples, and everyone at Ohio State, like the insiders, are like, we're going to be fine with Peoples.
And they bubble wrapped him in the spring game too.
That is an indication.
Yeah.
He carried the ball like twice.
Yeah, exactly. And so, Peoples and Donaldson. So really, to me, on the offense, man, it's coordination. But this offense is going to go as far as saying takes them, because they've got the pieces to. They corrected left tackle. They have experienced interior. So, like I said, the wide receivers are crazy.
Did you watch the Buckeye spring game?
I did.
Sayan has a like incredibly fast release.
Mm-hmm. Well, I went
out.
Yeah. So that's the big thing. Is like I went and watched him. I watched his huddle too from senior year because I love to see that difference. And there's definitely an athleticism gap compared to the college game. He doesn't move as fast as his high school huddle. Duh.
Yep.
But his pocket mobility, his functional mobility, he's not a runner. That'll be the big thing for us. Can we get to him in the pocket? But even in his high school huddle, man, his ability over the middle, I didn't see it as much in the spring game, but his ability over the middle is pretty scary. So it's Sayan is the governor of this offense. If Sayan can figure it out early, and they're gonna a lot of it's one read stuff. It looked the spring game in a lot of ways looked like Arch's spring game last year, where it was like these clear crossers, it's gonna come to this guy. That kind of stuff is what it looked like to me. But this offense has all the weapons it needs to be good if Sayan is good.
Yeah, I agree.
So yeah, be wary of they lost XYZ on offense. Now, defense is a little bit of a different tale. That's going to be they're down 8. They're having to replace 8 guys. Now, the guys that they keep in, Styles at linebacker is going to be is a player, and then of course Caleb Downs. So I mean, they have NFL guys that did stay, but they're replacing almost everything else on the defense.
AR brings up a very relevant question in the chat, if you don't mind pulling that.
This one? Very curious to see how.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Connor.
Very curious to see how Patricia will use Caleb Downs. Wonder if he copies Knowles' blueprint.
No, he will not.
Almost no one would, because Knowles is super creative.
Blueprint.
Yeah.
Knowles had a great, almost kind of a gimmick defense, but it was a gimmick defense that only posed problems to the offense, not really to his own defense, right? It's the problem with gimmick defenses is you show a look that's crazy and people kind of freak for a second, but then you realize, oh, they don't have answers for this, this, and this because it's a gimmick defense, right?
That's why they're creating a gimmick.
But Knowles put in a defense that was sound and gimmicky, and it was the best defense in the country by the end of the year.
And he did the same thing at Oklahoma State.
He's not going to – so Patricia will not do that. 1, because that's not his belief philosophically, and 2, ego. He is not going to run what Knowles ran. Oh, and also there's a third reason. The Buckeye staff, they have this weird deep state at Ohio State that because they're like permanent bureaucrats, like coaches there, and they were fighting back on Knowles on like, we just want to run base. And Knowles basically won the argument after Oregon torched them in Eugene. And then they ran Knowles' defense the rest of the year and had huge success. So they also have that, the D-line coach and their Laurinaitis, the linebacker coach, they are going to be more disposed to wanting to run what Patricia wants to run, which will be more pro style stuff the Patriots ran. I do think you'll see the Buckeyes run different stuff week to week. So, for example, against Michigan, you'll see them run a novel defense because that's Patricia's sort of operating, modus operandi. But they are not going to run what Knowles ran. Not happening. By the way, Caleb Downs will be good in any defense. So
he's so good.
He's really
good. I hate watching tape playing him. He just lurks, dude. It's like your eyes just find him when he's on the defense. Did Sayan look like he can go through progressions well? I don't think PK will allow him to key in on his first read. So this is the tricky part. Ohio State wasn't really trying to make Sayan go through progressions. Like, they would throw the shot. They would throw these, like I said, these crossers that you would know you're looking for this guy. So we don't know. He did it well in high school, but college is a different thing. So it was kind of like Arch last year. Arch wasn't going through a ton of progressions. He was throwing an RPO. He was throwing the out. Throwing deep, stuff like that. So I don't know. We don't know what's Sayan. Now it's going to be a different thing, right? Versus this pass rush is going to be nuts. Sayan hasn't seen anything like this because he's new to college. But man, he has the weapons to bail him out, doesn't he? So
let me ask you something, Connor. We feel we have a trump card with respect to Steve Sarkisian having really good game plans for big openers, right? These big marquee games. He has good offseason game plans that he cultivates. What does he have to scout or expect from Matt Patricia? Is he going to be watching NFL tape?
Yeah, I mean that's all you can really do.
But does he think that's going to is that what Patricia will install for Ohio State? Like, what are we expecting? So, if I had to guess, I would think Ohio State's going to run light boxes and blitz a fair amount and try to turn us over, like in the secondary, or cover us. And then they're going to kind of say, like, can you guess right, or can you push us around in the run game?
That's what I feel. Anytime they come from the NFL, the ego of the NFL is almost like, especially if you come to Ohio State that has dudes, you almost play this like kind of sound style of like, can you beat us heads up? I think they're going to put pressure on Arch. I think you have to test there, but I don't even know, because I would have to dig deeper into Ohio State's true personnel. What does this edge do well? That type of stuff to even know how they would deploy. My natural just base instinct is that generally these coordinators like to play kind of an ego ball. It's either going to be super heads up, can you beat us man to man, or they'll do the inverse of we think you're going to wilt under pressure, let's fire everybody. But yeah, I don't know.
What is going to be interesting for Ohio State, their edges, if you guys will remember, they had two very big, very physical edges last year, both about 270 and capable of playing like head up on an offensive tackle and holding their ground. That was a key feature of their defense. They're going to be replaced by smaller, quicker guys, except for this guy they got from North Carolina, the transfer, who looks actually really good. He kind of reminds me of Ethan Burke, maybe a little faster. So they're going to go through a transition there. And then the defensive tackle, they were just not able to address that in the portal.
Yeah, they don't have depth there. They feel good about their starters, but they don't feel good past that.
Yeah, but they don't have any depth. And we basically signed every defensive tackle with a pulse in the portal. So Ohio State probably hates our ass.
It's almost like we took every DT just so no one else could have every DT. It's almost this like hoarding, like pretty smart style.
It's a tertiary benefit of our primary strategy, which was to find a DT, right? Yeah. But it has an additional layer in that it deprives other people. I've heard people advance that like that's the reason we did it completely.
Oh yeah, no.
People who say, you know, we dropped the atomic bomb to threaten Joseph Stalin and the Soviet Union, and it's like, no, I think we did it to end the Pacific.
Right. Things can be multifactorial.
That was a knock-on benefit. By the way, we didn't get anything out of threatening them because we lost all of Eastern Europe, so it didn't work out great.
Yeah.
But I just think that I think that Ohio State, that is their biggest concern, that late in a competitive game against a peer rival athletically, they're not going to have the bodies and they're going to wilt and get tired. And that would be great.
So AR has a point here, and I'm actually using his point as a proxy. He says UMich tried that we are better than you defense against Texas with Wink. How did that work for him? It didn't. So this is not what AR is saying, but I do want to comment on a larger thing I've heard that even people have asked. You know, is Texas going to do to Ohio State what they did to Michigan? And the answer to me is just no, because Michigan had no receivers. Michigan had no passing quarterback. So it's like, could we beat them handedly? Maybe, but I don't think it'll be in that same, unless Sayin just totally isn't ready for the moment.
So I don't actually agree that Michigan tried that we are just better than you defense. In fact, they were very schemy, and that was part of their problem. They had their all-world defensive tackles dropping back into zone blitzes.
And they simulated everything.
Yeah, they simulated everything. They did not do we're just better than you. They did the exact opposite of that. They would have been much better off just lining up and not trying to run a bunch of stuff, because all they did was have Gunnar Helm running wide open pretty much on every down, because they didn't know who they're simulating a bunch of stuff, and they ultimately didn't know whether linebacker or safety had Gunnar Helm running up the seam. So I disagree with that. That's not what Wink Martindale did. In fact, as the season went on, he ran less of his stuff and less of his simulations, and they just played more straight up. So
it's the Ravens scheme.
It is, but he was an extreme version of it and got fired for it in the NFL. Yeah. Whereas his acolytes, his pupils, ran a more restrained version of it and they're the guys who are the stars of college football. When Michigan had their great defense in their national championship run, that was pure Ravens stuff, but not Wink Martindale's version, which was Sims. Like every down was
It was
some
a sim, yeah.
If you're dropping Kenneth Grant into zone coverage on a zone blitz, you've lost the plot.
Yeah.
That's not Mason Graham or Kenneth Grant's best use. So,
yeah. What do you feel about the Ohio State? Is Texas going to walk into Ohio State and do what they did to Michigan?
Yeah, we're going to win by probably 40, 50, 60
Cool.
points.
Thank you for that clip, dude. That will not haunt us ever.
No, I think it's going to be an awesome game. And both teams are just so new. I think it's going to be which one gets their sea legs first, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think they're both going to come out. They're both going to be talented, but they're both going to be inexperienced and incomplete and not like meshed yet. So who figures it out in game? I think that's going to be the winner of the team. So you might see one of the teams get out to a 10-point, 14-point lead, but that won't mean anything. I think if the other team finds their sea legs, they'll reel them back in and win the game.
Yeah. And well, to me, it's like last year, Michigan, we did good against their defense, but they had a ton of first rounders on that team, like on defense. Like that was a good defense talent wise.
Yeah,
they had nothing on offense. I mean, they were just sad. The inverse is more true of Ohio State, that their offense is not anemic. Like they have a quarterback that can work. So they have a stronger offense in theory. Now, the thing with Ohio State is we just assume because they're returning guys, but they're returning guys they're filling in guys that are also going to be NFL guys in the future too. I just don't think this is an apples to apples comparison with
no,
Michigan.
it's not. I mean, Michigan didn't have a wide receiver that would make Ohio State's 3 deep.
Right.
I mean, I don't think Michigan had a wide receiver that would make Ohio State's roster. I think they would just be forced.
Well, even Stain as a young guy already is a better tangible quarterback as far as he can throw the ball.
Davis Warren or Alex Orji. I mean, good God.
Remember, their whole thing was going to be the run game, but they're back. Like Donovan Edwards, that's one of the most overhyped players. I remember scouting them, and I was like, Khalil Mullings is way better than Donovan Edwards. How is this guy getting all this praise?
Donovan Edwards had a knack for breaking big runs in games with
in the national televised,
and then sucking in every other game. And it was obvious that Khalil Mullings was the better, and he won the game, the job eventually. He got drafted, former linebacker, pretty awesome.
Yeah, so it's just that, but just I've heard fans, and AR didn't do this. I was just using it as a proxy because it reminded me. But I've heard a lot of like they're going to do what they did to Michigan. They could maybe score wise, I don't know, but it's not the same thing that's occurring there. Cool.
Yeah, cool. I mean, Ohio State's going to score points on us.
Yeah,
Michigan could not.
Correct. All right, Paul, you want to talk real quick about adding a 9th SEC game?
They're debating whether or not to add a 9th SEC game. And
correct.
The trade-off for all of this, of course, is more money because, there's not enough money in the college football game driving our decisions already. But the premise is the Big Ten plays 9 conference games. The SEC only plays 8. The question is this something that the SEC votes on? Because if they do, there's enough lower and middle class teams in the SEC that they don't want that 9th game.
Right.
Because the whole SEC model, if you're in the middle class or the lower middle class of the SEC, is you play 4 non-con scrubs, you go 4
tomato cans,
and then you try to go 3-5 or even 2-6 in SEC play. Then you go to a bowl and you tell all your fans, we're an SEC team, we're a winning record, we've gone to a bowl 9 years in a row, everything's successful, we're doing well. And that is the model. And if you add a 9th SEC game, you run the risk in your off years of playing a Texas, a Florida, Alabama, and you take an L. And all of a sudden now your SEC record is 2-7, and there's not enough non-cons to get you into a bowl and convince your fans psychologically that you're a competitive program.
Well, and the thing too that you point out in the article, Big Ten's 9 games is not the same as the SEC's 9 games. The Big Ten at the top of their league is just as competitive as the SEC. Their middle class and bottom tier is not even in the same universe.
Agreed.
So it's their 9th game often is to the caliber of a non-con tomato can.
There's more inherent risk playing Missouri year to year than playing Purdue, right?
Yeah.
And so, Missouri can have off years and they'll be down. I think they'll be down this year, in fact. But there's also years where Missouri wins 9 or 10 games, right? And they've got a bunch of NFL guys. So Kentucky, obviously they had a terrible year last year. There's been multiple years where Kentucky has 5 NFL guys drafted, right, from their team. So their Big Ten has a larger bifurcation between the haves and have-nots. The top of the Big Ten, just as good as the SEC, obviously. But the bottom and the middle, it ain't good, man. And you're just not going to get Kentucky beating Ole Miss in an upset, which happened last year. Kentucky went 4-7 or 4-8. That there's no equivalent to that in the Big Ten. That just doesn't really happen.
Absolutely. And this is a cool stat from Splendid Daddy. Big Ten first rounders came from 4 schools. SEC first rounders came from 9 schools.
Yeah, great stat, Splendid Daddy. Great fact.
Yeah. So that's the big thing.
Too, if you're Texas, if we add a 9th SEC game, does that mean we just play 3 non-con scrubs?
So this is a good point too.
Get rid of these marquee games? Because
Right.
if so, maybe I'm not really in. I like these marquee games.
Yeah, Paul makes a great point too, right? Do you lose to Michigan? Do you lose the Ohio State games when you go to 9? And I would prefer to keep these games too, because one of the fun parts, sometimes frustrating if you lose, but the fun part about being a Texas fan is you get red meat early, and you get to be on the national stage early, and you're getting these real matchups, and these matter for your resumes. But also, Paul states this loss column bias, dumb way of evaluating teams also disincentivizes you from doing this, because the committee will say that they look at strength of schedule, blah, blah, blah. They ultimately don't. If you have one loss, they're going to let you in. So that's the problem too, is you're going to lose money, maybe not having a 9th SEC game, but you'll make just as much money if you can go farther in a bowl game on the back end because you have one less loss.
Yeah, and I don't want to get into relitigating all of last year, because it was a kind of a weird as well, because you had the SEC representatives who were 9-3 and were arguing for inclusion in the playoff were very poor examples. But year to year, you will have SEC teams that are the 5th or 6th best SEC team that would clearly go in the ACC and win the ACC. That will happen. Yeah. Or the Big 12 for that matter. This notion that, you're telling me a team that's 11-1 doesn't deserve the playoff? It's like, if they haven't played anyone, yeah, that's exactly what I'm telling you.
Well, and also, follow baseball, follow basketball. They're talking about RPI. Strength of schedule is baked into every other sport. They play more games. They play more games, so it's easier to suss out. But still, it's like we need a universal metric that is not in a black box, that everybody knows there's RPI, everybody knows there's this, and we need a way to figure out schedule strength.
So when the committee was meeting, and I know it's different now because it's a playoff and all that, but there's similar people on this committee, I'll just say. When they met 2 years ago, they had an interview that I don't think anyone else caught this, but I was listening, and they were talking about some of their metrics. You heard the Bo Nix completion percentage thing. Remember that?
Yes.
Everyone reacted to that. The guy also said, we looked at yardage differential between their yards per game versus their opponents on average.
Yeah.
But they didn't factor in the quality of their opponents.
Correct.
They just took raw yardage differentials.
Yeah.
And they said that is actually an advanced statistic. And it's it's the antithesis of an advanced statistic.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking, that's the intellectual level, the analytical level of this committee when they think they're doing advanced statistics. And they really don't even understand what they are. I think most of them on there clearly. And so I just say that you're encouraging teams not to play really tough teams. And that should be the opposite of what we should be trying to encourage all sorts of early season, big marquee matchups across the conferences, because that's how you figure out stuff. Right.
And here's my thing. Look, if we play an early conference big matchup and you lose by 7 or less, that game almost doesn't exist to me. Now, if you get beat by 21, now we can start factoring that in. But I'm not going to ding you if you lose by 7 to Ohio State, and they go on to be competitive. So it's like, that's the thing too is, yeah, this is a silly metric and model. And the committee idea, we just need one flat. This is how we do strength of schedules. We have a ton of brilliant advanced analytics guys in the sport, man. You could get all 5 of them nerds together and they could figure out something that would be available to the public, announced ahead of time to where there's no shadiness. We know exactly, we can track it kind of week by week. The problem is with football is that you do end up with teams playing such talent disparities. How do you rank when A&M is playing FCS, blah, blah, blah? That's what hurts the sport or for strength of schedules, because just the disparity in who plays who can be really tricky.
Yeah, and I would intermix that with some subjective stuff, which is, so I'm one of these people that championed and was very comfortable with Florida State being left out of the playoff.
Yeah, me too.
Because they fundamentally were a different football team without their starting quarterback.
Yep.
That's just the reality. And by the way, they went on to prove it.
Yeah, Georgia slaughtered them.
Well, even before that, when they played in the ACC title game, that was a pathetic offensive performance.
It's not like we didn't get data. We got to see a game.
We got data.
Yeah.
And the best thing for them would have been like if that injury had happened in the fourth quarter of the ACC title game, right?
Yeah.
Then they're still in because you're like, it's a black box. We don't know how good their quarterback is. But we saw it and we're like, hey, you're not one of the best 4 teams. Tough luck. We're not giving Michigan a bye. Like, They don't get to beat you 38-0 and run film on Washington and Texas for 2 weeks.
Correct.
Right? So I was a huge fan of that. So I do think I'm not a purely stat guy. I think there's a subjective element too. If you have big late season injuries, if you have even your quality of play starts to tail off as the year goes on, right? You start off gangbusters, but now you're just squeaking by late. I think that should be a factor, like in your seeding and stuff like that. So
college football has this old sentimentality of like the most deserving mindset. It's like, well, those SMU kids played really hard. Yeah, they fought hard and went to 11-1, and then you're going to tell me that those young children don't get rewarded. And so it's like, if we can get rid of that hokey, like 1950s mindset that we still have in the sport that permeates everything, we'll be good. Because the reality is this: it's about the best 4, not the most deserving 4. It's about we're putting gladiators in the ring. It's a blood sport. Who's going to draw the most blood? That's what we need to look at. I don't care about this emotional. Can you imagine these kids worked hard for all 4 months of this and they don't get it? I don't care, man. This is an entertainment product.
And it was 28-0 at halftime up at Penn State.
Yeah. So like, I don't care about that. I hate that argument.
You would have loved Ancient Rome, man.
Yeah. Yeah. I'd had a lot of fun at Ancient. I've just been.
So people don't know this. Like, so not all gladiatorial fights were to the death.
Right. Most weren't.
But it wasn't just the emperor saying this or that. It was, there could be a draw. Mm-hmm. You could lose. And basically there isn't even a decision. The other guy clearly wins and you don't deliver the final blow. Right. Yeah. So they found graves of great gladiators who were like, they have their record on there. Like he went 21-4-3, like 4 losses and 3 draws, and he still lived. Of course, he's in the grave and he probably died being a gladiator. But yeah, you would have loved Ancient Rome, Connor.
Well, the audience also had a huge part. So like the audience, like there were times where the emperors would kill that gladiator that was famous and beloved, and the audience would turn on him.
Yes.
So it's like, and there's times the audience could overrule, and like basically how when Jade Barron in the Georgia game, when the fans threw the water bottles and got the call overturned, you could do that in Ancient Rome. They would send some of these famous gladiators to death, and the fans would just go nuts.
You suck.
Yeah, they could save your life, literally, like we did.
Well, as wild as it is for us to conceive, because I mean, we're like, dude, gladiators. It's like the UFC with weapons, right? Real consequences,
right?
Or even the bestiaris, where they'd fight animals. The most popular things were not the gladiators. You know what it was?
What, performances?
Chariot racing.
Okay, yeah.
Chariot racing was the obsession of Ancient Rome. That was by far the #1 spectator sport.
Yeah. Dude, some of the productions, I went to
I would have watched the dudes fighting with swords. That would have
I'd watch it all, dude. That was some compelling entertainment, dude. They have you been to the Coliseum in Rome?
No, I've never
It's
been to
cool.
Rome.
Yeah, it's super cool, man. It's so how advanced it was, man. Just like how many levels there are to it. I mean, it's
They
incredible.
flooded it and had a naval battle.
Dude, I know. It's truly incredible. Like there's get rid of the blood sport side. We don't have anything like that. I mean, we do like NASCAR, but imagine if there was one place where everything was. That's like you could go see a play, you could go see a UFC fight, you could go everything is in this one arena and naval battles and all of that too. It's really incredible. And that's it for today's history lesson.
Yeah, that's right.
But that's the argument for the 9 game. If you lose the big non-con, I'm not for it. If you keep the big non-con, of course, I would like to see more going on.
Somebody
Says Jerry World is our proxy. Maybe it is.
Jerry Jones would have done well in ancient Rome.
He would have.
Although an impatient emperor would have executed him about 10 years ago
Yeah.
for his performance with the Cowboys.
Yep. Yeah, that's the fun part of the NFL. You can't fire the owner, so he can forever hurt your heart. Also, shout out Mavs, number 1 pick. Luka, get that Luka bum out of here, dude. We're over Luka, dude. We're number 1 pick.
They're going to trade Cooper Flagg for
I
Austin.
know,
Reeves.
dude. That's the
I saw that in our Inside Texas.
Hey, dude, yeah, dude. That's the scariest part. Is like, don't screw it up. But for the map, this is someone said it's a point that the world has no inherent moral structure for Nico here to get the number 1 pick. There is no karma. There is no justice.
Well, you know the conspiracy belief of certain high major market teams will always get players in the draft, and the way they fix it because they're like, well, there's envelopes. They make one of the envelopes cold. They put it in a freezer.
Yeah, I've heard that. Yeah,
feeling around, you feel the one that's cold, and then that's the one you pull.
Well, the conspiracies are flying that was the deal, right? So Nico trades Luka to the big LA market, and in return,
recompense is Dallas gets, and Dallas is like what, a number 6 media market, something like that. So you want players there, you want guys there too. But yeah, it's when you get the NBA's rigged guys really going, you'll hear all sorts of crazy stuff. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah. Guys, reality is exciting enough. We don't have to make up conspiracies about literally everything. All right, Paul, thank you for your time.
Only someone who's in on the conspiracies would say that, Connor. That's right.
This was brought to you by Academy Sports and Outdoors. Later, y'all.